Hi, Deirdre. I'm glad you're here today. I thought a lot about your situation, and I'm happy you came back this week to talk to me. I would like to start out by asking about your panic attacks and how they might relate to your family background. Can you share what you think might contribute to these panic attacks?
Yeah. Um, well, when I was 4, I can remember that there was a neighborhood friend who drowned in a swimming pool, and my mom came home one day. I remember the day that she shared it with us, and we talked about it as a family. My mom and I actually never talked about it again directly. I remember my two older sisters like kind of whispering about it, but in my memory, like I really didn't understand it. Um, but then when I was around 9, I started thinking about it. I would have what I would call like mini panic attacks. Like if anybody mentioned death or I thought about it, like my stomach hurt. I just was obsessed with death.
Okay. Oh man, I'm so sorry you had this experience. First off, it must have been so frightening for you as a little girl, not understanding what was happening and then no one ever talking about it again.
Yeah, and I mean, it went on for like about a year. I can remember in that year, like I wouldn't play with dolls. Of course, I refused to swim. I was really introverted. I kept thinking about all the ways I could die. I was worried about my mom and my dad and my sisters and my younger brother. It was just like a crazy time in my mind.
Wow, this event definitely really affected you. Although it is normal for children around 9 or 10 to think about death and what that means, what you went through was certainly unique when you had the panic attacks that resulted. Did your parents get you any help?
Yeah, I remember going to see a family pediatrician, and he said things like, there's accidents, car crashes, airplanes. I think he said something like, everyone dies sometimes. I remember like my sisters reassuring me at different times. I remember my dad and mom like expressing concern towards me. I seemed to work through most of it, I guess, but something seems to have just sort of lingered.
I'm so grateful that your family did offer you support and got you to talk to that doctor. I believe they did the right thing in the moment. Now we have to deal with those lingering thoughts. I think you're smart to ask for help, and I'm going to try and connect some dots for you, and hopefully we can resolve this. So what I hear you saying is you experienced a very adult situation, as a child and dealing with death, which was very confusing. You got a little help from your family doctor. Your family was supportive in the best way they knew how, and then the thoughts came and went over the years, and now they're back. And then with that, the panic attacks have reappeared.
Oh, yeah. And I just don't think about it like I'm obsessed about it. And now I have a new granddaughter. Every time my daughter suggests she wants to drop her off, I spend the whole time like leading up to it and the whole time in the visit and afterwards just obsessing about the baby. And then sometimes I even have panic attacks.
Okay, I see. It's affecting the relationship with the grandbaby now. So that must be very hard for you. And obviously very upsetting when it's happening. What has your daughter said about you avoiding the baby?
Well, actually, she confronted me recently and asked, like, if I didn't even really want to see the baby. She wanted to know what was wrong with me and why I'm avoiding her and, like, not showing much interest. She knows sort of like all about my teenage rebellious years. And then she actually accused me of having a midlife crisis and asked if I was just going to be doing my own thing and forget about her and her family right now. She asked if, like, implying, was I just going to escape from responsibility?
Well, from what you're describing, you might be repeating some of that same behavior from your childhood and teenage years. You're the youngest child, correct?
No, middle.
Okay, so tell me about your family, and can you tell me what position in the family, what that was like for you?
Yeah, I was the baby for like 3+ years. Just before I turned 4, my brother was born. And I think, I remember kind of feeling left out. My sisters were old enough to go to school. So I was just at home, but most of the attention was on the baby, and I just sort of disappeared into myself.
Okay, I understand. So there is some birth order research that indicates the position you were in, baby, then middle child, to definitely make one feel left out. And I'm sorry this is how you felt. What other effects do you think this had on you?
Well, I know by the time I was a teenager, I was definitely very rebellious. And again, my daughter knows all about this from all the stories from her aunts. As a teenager, I was just felt alone, so I did whatever I wanted on my own. I kind of checked out on the family, didn't fulfill any obligations or responsibilities. I gave my parents such a hard time. I did all sorts of like daredevil things that got in trouble. They were worried nonstop. Sometimes I can't even believe I made it to 50.
Huh. Well, when you put all those experiences together, I can see how you may have formed that relationship around the rebellious attitude, and at least the impression that you were checking out. And sometimes being the middle child can make you a little rebellious too. And when you don't think you fit in, you do everything in your power to make people pay for that, right? And I'm glad you made it this far. I certainly understand your mother and father must have been very worried about you, and I can empathize with how you felt too, and obviously how they felt.
Yeah, and all along I've had these attacks too, so I guess I just haven't done very well in leaving it all behind.
Well, I see it a little differently. You've made it this far in spite of all those things you describe. I would say you're doing quite well. You've said you and your husband get along, you have 2 wonderful children and a new grandbaby. I think you've actually accomplished a lot. You've mentioned you have good friends, you volunteer at your church. Without you, there would not be this family. And you've taken the step to seek professional help. So those are all great personal traits from where I sit. When you think of your current situation, what is it that you'd like to ultimately accomplish if you could just describe it?
Well, I'd like to control these panic episodes and see my grandchild more often. And I want my daughter to feel supported.
Okay. Okay. So if we could get these panic attacks under control, you could see your grandchild more often and enjoy the visits, obviously. And your daughter won't be worried about you either, and your granddaughter, and you will have a wonderful bond.
Yeah, and then I'd look forward to the visits.
These are great goals. So when you have the attacks, tell me, is there something that is happening right before, or something you're thinking?
Yeah, I'm usually on the phone with my daughter or discussing the baby with my husband. We're talking about seeing the baby, or the baby being left alone with me, which actually hasn't ever happened. Somehow I've managed to kind of avoid this and gotten away with it for a while.
Okay, so the panic is brought on by thinking you will be alone with the baby, and that the time will come and you will actually be responsible for this baby.
Yeah, and this never happened with my kids. I was like always super responsible with my kids. I never had any issues of panic, just the normal hectic mom stuff. But when I think about my granddaughter staying overnight, I panic.
Okay, so when the attack comes in that moment, what are you thinking, if anything?
Oh, I am thinking for sure. I'm thinking I will hurt the baby. I'm thinking I won't be able to comfort the baby. I think, what if the baby chokes on food? What if she were to drown in the tub? What if she were to die in her sleep?
Wow. Okay, so these feelings at that moment must be very frightening for you. And I know you want them to stop. So I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Is there a chance there's a connection to the neighbor boy drowning?
Yes, I've been having some flashbacks with the attacks. There's definitely a relationship. I think because I was just such a screw up, I'm gonna let something bad happen.
Okay, okay. I think I'm figuring out what you're telling me. I want to try something with you. It's like a brainstorm. I want us to come up with some alternatives to the current perspective you have about your capabilities with this grandbaby, and then talking about the visits with your grandchild.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. I'm going to make a statement based on what you've already told me today, and then I want you to then make a statement that argues against that statement. Does that sound okay?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start with I'm a total screw up and I haven't changed a bit since I was a teenager.
So I would say I'm not a screw up.
Almost. Try to express more about what you're good at that doesn't make you a screw up, but in your words.
Okay, so I could say something like I'm a good wife and mother. I'm also successful at volunteer work, and I take great care of my horses.
Yes, exactly like that. Good job. So here's another one. If someone left their baby with me, they are irresponsible and don't know what could happen.
Okay. Um, I was a great mother to my kids when they were babies. We always had fun and played, and they were safe.
Okay, that's a great one. How about this? I don't want to have grandchildren. They are too much work, and I would hate to be a grandmother.
Okay, that's an easy one. I absolutely adore children. They are so much fun, and I've always wanted to be a grandma, and children bring me joy.
Okay, so you're doing great with this. Okay, let's keep going. A couple more. How about there are so many bad things that could happen to a child in my care. I do not know what I am doing.
Let's see. Well, having a grandmother who is active in your life is a gift. And a grandma's house is the safest place to be. My home is safe.
Okay, let's keep going. There is nothing anyone can do to make a home safe for a child.
People can take precautions to avoid accidents when children are around.
Oh, wow, perfect. Okay, so you did a great job of just negating what I've said, which is basically what you've already said. So when I think about what we talked about today, I think you came here with some fear, hesitation about taking care of your granddaughter. You were panicking about the baby being injured or worse, dying in your care. So scary. You thought you were a screw up and you haven't changed a bit since you're a teenager, and that you have nothing to offer a grandchild. Now, I cannot stop a panic attack for you, but I can offer you a new frame in which to view that panic attack. When you think of, let's say, looking out a window at your home, maybe at one window you might see the garage and some old paint cans, maybe a pile of Amazon boxes waiting for the trash pickup. What does that look like for you?
It looks like a mess and dirty, and I either want to clean it up or just shut the garage door.
Okay, good. Okay, so if you went to another window in your house, let's say your kitchen window, what do you see?
Oh, out my kitchen window, I see my yard and then the horse pastures. There's trees in the background with beautiful foliage throughout the year. Um, my garden and vegetables growing in it.
Okay, so what does this view look like compared to the other view?
That view is like my happy place. I love to watch my horses. They're so peaceful. I love to see things growing in my garden and have things to pick and make fresh recipes.
Okay, so when you look out one window, there's a mess and there's ugliness, and out the other, there's peace and happy thoughts. So you see, if you imagine your mind having two windows to look out of, you'd pick that second window, the kitchen window, right? That's called reframing. So instead of that worry and hesitation and feelings to be a screw up, let's try a new frame on your actual situation. So if you'll bear with me, I want to connect some dots. You have proven you're a successful mother, wife, volunteer, friend, horse mom. You've created this life for yourself without messing it up. You're human, you recognize there are dangers out there, and you can make a safe home. You've already proven this by raising 2 wonderful children. You've longed to be, now the baby is here. You are ready to be a grandmother, and you want to have a wonderful, safe visit with this baby. Your husband will be there, your horses will be there, your vegetables will be there, and your proven abilities will be there. You're ready. So do you think we could reframe the situation with this new window?
Well, I'm certainly going to try it.